All right, good afternoon, folks. This is Ryan Martin with the Baby Yoda Recipes team. This is the front end of our single page app. This front end was built on pure CSS with a menu responsive design. So this basically was just boilerplate code. Over here we have the menu bar, which brings you directly to recipes when you log in. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of the code. This front end of the app was built on Glitch, which is a nice online IDE to put together single page applications really quickly. We used a kind of a loosely coupled design. The components uh, were not like the other components really, and this made it easier to maintain referential integrity in the database. Looking at our JS, we have our API server, which is our API deployed to Heroku. We have two of them, but we decided to go on this one for now. We have a method here, so we don't have to repeat API server everywhere when we make a request. And we have a variable API, which is basically the model of our front end. We have all of our get, post, put, and delete methods written out for our recipe and ingredients class. And this makes calls directly to the API on the back end so that we can do a lot of cool things with data. Okay, and down here we have our recipes view controller. Our recipes view controller and our ingredients view controller. These both contain the methods to make the calls to the API. We have our get method, our post method, delete, and put. These are all of our basic CRUD operations that we need for software engineering. Right here we have our views, and our views utilize CSS code with Mithril code, and Mithril is a JavaScript library that focuses on client side for single page applications. And these view methods utilize helper methods such as make recipe rows, which actually puts together a table design for storing the data. And I will quickly show you that right here. Right now we have an Italian bruschetta recipe posted on our website. These are all the attributes here from the database. And these are our other view methods. I'll show you what those look like in code. We have add recipes views. These create those boxes where we can input data to send to the database. And all these methods are quite a bit similar. They just utilize the API in different ways. So there's the delete one, which is a lot similar to add. And then we have update. And then down here, our views are listed for the menu. And those are routed. And down at the bottom, we have a component to create a dynamic routable link. And that is done with this method. And that pretty much sums up the front end code. I'm going to go ahead and add something to the database to demonstrate that it works. So we're just going to use this as an example, cheesecake recipe. And we'll just keep adding the data to these boxes. Looks like this is a 16 serving recipe. We'll get the directions as well. Wow, a lot of steps in this recipe. Paste that in there. This will be 1 unit. And we will also get some ingredients data. We don't have to take all the data. We'll just take a little bit just to show how it works. Tools. We'll just say that it's made with a pan. Okay, now let's go back to our get recipes view. And we can see that the cheesecake recipe has been stored in our database and displayed on the front end. Now, just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and delete it, even though we just did all that work, just to demonstrate that we can also use the delete function. So I'm going to go directly to our Heroku app so that I can get the ID of the cheesecake, and we can delete that by ID. Okay, and if we go back here, you can see that we deleted it from the database very quickly. And our get method quickly updates to show that we now just have the Italian style bruschetta in there. And that pretty much concludes our project from the front end perspective. Thank you for listening.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
This is Xuan. I'm gonna demonstrate how our backend works by first sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna start off starting a new window by create a clone. We will make a new folder called demo. And we will just clone our Baby Yoda master. Okay. All right. So our backend is following the MVC structure, the model view controller. So when a request from the front end is sent to the backend, it will first receive that view. Because we're adding a recipe, removing a recipe, or update it, it will come into the recipe view and handled by these methods, whether get all the recipes or specific recipe, post, put, or delete. This request will then be routed using a mapper to create a receive JSON object and then convert it to a receive object. Let's go to the model and talk about the receive objects. So as we can see, we have basically what you want about a recipe. Everything is in here, have title, description, etc. The thing is, we have a list of ingredients object. We have this design because it gave us extensibility of adding more functionality in the future. For example, changing the quantity of ingredients. If the serving, if we want different kind of servings, and if we want to look up by ingredients, like if I have something ingredients, what can I make? We don't have time to realize all these features in this time, but to having this allows more extensibility for future development. So as we all know, like the data is sent over as a string to our backend, but we have listed ingredients. How do we convert the strings into it? We rely on our receipt JSON object, which you can see converts basically everything in the simple format of string and integer. The mapper will just fill in everything with the information it receives, and the toReceive method will convert it based on certain rules, including regex. This regex will follow this format to convert a string input of ingredients to an ingredient object. If we follow these rules, it will actually update the unit and unit name so we can dynamically adjust it in the future. But if it doesn't follow this name, it will mark this as not changeable and just save everything into the name. So let's back to the receipt view. So after we convert everything into a receipt, now it's the part of the receive controller does its job. The receive controller basically have everything it should have. You have get, you have add, update, and delete. And we also have the controller for the ingredients. We are using the MongoDB to save everything into like a stable save, not in a simple hash map. To achieve this, we basically need to convert back and forth between the objects and document object, which we rely on this. It basically, what we save, if it's a simple string or integer, it will just save that and save the UID as the document ID of the MongoDB entry. But if it's an ingredients, we will save the UID of the ingredients to the list of ingredients for the receipt record. And when we reconstruct it, it will basically fetch all the ingredients from the ingredient table, reconstruct them to the ingredients object, and then reconstruct the receipt object. While this ingredient controller and receipt controller, the method is kind of identical. They all include add, get, update, and delete. There are slightly difference. Ingredients only does deal with itself, but for the receipt, because it contains ingredients, you can notice in the add receipt, for example, while it need to deal with the receipts, also need to handle the call the ingredients controller to insert the ingredients as well. And you can see it directly here. As long as the receipt ingredients is not null, it will insert the ingredients into the table first, and then insert the receipt into the table. Okay, enough being said, let's try to deploy it and see how actually it worked. So we just cloned our repo from Git. Let's create a Heroku app by typing Heroku create. Okay, now you see we created a guarded Brook instance at Heroku. And really simply, because we are dealing with the team repo master here, we don't necessarily need to name any specific branch we want to push to. We will just push to master. So we just type Heroku master. And it will try to build, and it should be appear alive just in a minute.
Yeah, this is the part that always takes a minute.
Meanwhile, I'm going to copy this link and send to Ryan. And maybe after it's done, we can try to add some record to it from our front end.
Sure, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Still launching. There we go. And we see build successful. So if we type in to the Heroku dashboard, we can actually see it just get deployed. All right, so we can open this app and do /receipt. Yay.
Yeah, there's the bruschetta.
There we go.
Very cool.
And if we try to push to it, it will the same, be just adding the same like sample recipe we just had.
Yeah, it's just a new API server, so we could plug it into the front end and it would all work the same.
Right, because the DB, we are hosting the MongoDB using the MongoDB Atlas, so it's persistent. So whatever data we have already in there, gonna work no matter what instance we just create. And that's about it. And let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.